My father lied about everything, even things that felt irrational or too foolish to be turned into a lie. For instance, he once claimed he was eating at Red Lobster only to admit he stayed home that night. The whole incident feeling so strange, as if somehow I would be more impressed he was enjoying cheddar biscuits over just sitting on his couch. What he had not realized is that he had grown so unimpressive to me because of the very stupidity of such lies. Was Red Lobster so much the place to be? Moreover, did he want me to feel bad that once again he was living more lavishly without me, or at least would make sure he lived more lavishly without me, and that I couldn't? Watching my dad interact with people was like watching Ted Bundy schmooze his victims. I wondered how his charm really wrapped people enough to not see the danger of him. But then again, I already knew he was Ted. Thus, when he proceeded to discuss with a group of random strangers about his trips to Japan, which he had never been to, beyond the Travel Channel, I was shocked at how convincing he was to the group. My father was naming spots and retelling stories that had never happened, but to the crowd, he appeared like the most well traveled man. To me, he was memorizing a textbook. The epitome of presenting your research could lead to people believing you were explorer rather than a colonizer. Let me do that line again. To me, he was as mesmerizing as a textbook, the epitome of presenting your research to lead people to believe you were explorer rather than a colonizer. Oof, girl, I need to write better. For nearly 2 hours, I would be eating my food as my father literally gave the nearing table advice on spots to go, which oddly enough did not include Red Lobster. They were enthralled, shook his hand, and left with such a level of gratitude I was surprised they did not pay for his meal. What was supposed to be a father daughter time usually ended with me either in tears and another one of his emotional hijackings of my spirit. But this time it had become just an exploration of Japanese culture and history in the middle of Cheesecake Factory. As I ate the last of my Chinese chicken salad, the old familiar perplexity of my father climbed inside me to make me ask why. It was a feeling I felt when I saw the Jussie Smollett case, which might as well have been my father on trial. My dad would 100% pull a Jussie. He actually did many times in his life. One of the main reasons he did not want me hanging out with his second family was because he called them a batch of racists. Yet I knew it was because my father enjoyed having multiple worlds. He liked being a Japanese aficionado to random tourists. He liked planning a destination wedding with whom he called his favorite wife in love letters, but would deduce her description a mistress near the end of his life. He reveled on his ability to change hats and switch masks to make people he could never love actually love him. He had no connection to any human being beyond the lies he told them, to keep himself in some sort of godly position, which is why, till this day, I wonder why Red Lobster was God to him. It's a question I ask myself all the time, not about Red Lobster, but about whether a pathological liar can actually love. While many found and deduced Jesse's motives into monetary, understanding that inventing a hate crime would get him more fame and money, which an actor will always want, there was one reason most ignored, except for me. He liked lying. There's a rush when a group of people believe you went to Japan when at the time you had never left the country. It must have been exhilarating watching the amount of social media support and events that lined up to back him and trusting yourself enough to know you could keep up the lie and those supporters as well. God, I was witness to the career he would have had he never been caught via my dad. My father was a criminal that held his crimes so tight lipped, even from the mouths of his victims, that not one jail sentence ever found him, and instead, he ended up rich. Mm. I was a witness to the career he would have had he never been caught like my dad. Oh, okay, now I know what I was trying to say with that. I wrote these episodes so long ago and I just want to push them out, so bear with me. I felt with Jussie Smollett, my father was a pathological liar. And when people went for Jussie Smollett, I was watching a documentary about him recently. There was this, it would have worked really well for him. I mean, there was an outpouring of love and pity and calling him brave. And it was at a peak time in terms of Trumpism and Trumpism. Um, and there was just this real question of why, if because there was also the risk. And obviously, what happened is that he got caught and it ruined his career. Like, there's just no, we're not going to see him again. And the thing that I noted is that my father loved seeing the face of people that believed his lie. And I never believed my father's lies. Very rarely. I think the only lie I ever believed in my father was that he would love me if I just kept on handling his abuse. That's the only lie I really believed. And I think that's why he hated me, because I genuinely thought if I told my dad he was being mean to me, he would change and he would start to be loving, because he would tell me how loving he was to his other kids. But then he would do this weird thing like make fun of them because his other children were black. He would make fun of their features and say he was disgusted by them, but he was economically supporting them. And my father was very materialistic. So where his money went meant where his care went. And that he never gave me his money. And I always wondered why he bashed them to still support them, and I just got the bashing, because that's the thing. He could have bashed me if he paid me. Um, and he was just weird like that, you know? Like I didn't understand his racism. I didn't understand his lying even about weird stuff like Red Lobster. You know, you lie to commit bigamy, but do you really lie to get cheddar biscuits? And I think it was that. I think there's just a real rush to watching people fall into your trap, especially when your trap is laced with pity. And my father loved being pitied. It was next to cocaine, one of the biggest things he snorted. And I felt like with Jussie, at least for 2 to 3 days before the cracks started showing, there was this immense love and support and defending and honor. Like he was being honored. And I think he was trying to sell a concert at the time. It got sold out. Um, and it just crashed. But for 3 days, he was God. And for an addict, that's amazing. For a narcissist, that is just creme de la creme, because you have to have some narcissistic tendencies to invent a hate crime, especially at a time when hate crimes were peaking. Um, and I often like compare my dad to Ted Bundy, and I have an episode coming out because my father's ability to just be evil with some people, like really pick out his victims versus put on the nice guy mask, was like dangerously mesmerizing. It was dangerous, and as one of his victims, horrible. But it warps me to this day, his ability to just kind of be like really, really malicious and destructive and devilish. And then be like, well, hi guys, anybody want to hear about my trip to Japan? Like that switch. And what was so crazy about Jussie was he got caught. He paid for it, and very lightly so. Although, I mean, arguably he can never have a career again. So, um, and he was upset, and he held on to that lie till the end of time, and he incited people that actually, the names of people that actually suffered from racism and hate crime, um, historically, and he just didn't back down. And that ability, and in some ways, I understand. I mean, we wouldn't have taken the apology. And the fact that he held on to the lie will always give him like two or three supporters left. But it's like just on a psychological bent, fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Check out daddyrecovery.com to read these posts. Follow me on all platforms, and let's just like figure this ish out. Narcissist, am I right?